Have you ever been told your taste in partners is a little boring? Maybe because you find a steady, quiet, I'm here for you way more attractive than some big, dramatic, romantic gesture. Well, what if that preference isn't boring at all? What if, psychologically speaking, it's actually a sign of a hidden power? This isn't about a lack of passion. It's a sign of something much, much deeper. You see, you're not looking for a thrill ride, because frankly, your mind has already mastered the art of surviving a storm. So today, we're going to decode the psychological blueprint behind this silent strength. And you're going to want to stick around because at the very end, we get to the most important part, a powerful technique I call a neural reset that will help you turn this old survival skill into an absolute superpower. All right, so where does this all start? Well, to really get this, the first place we have to look is your childhood blueprint. It's wild, but the templates for our adult relationships, they get formed super early on, most of the time without us even having a clue. Now, there's a clinical term for these templates, introjecs. The easiest way to think about them is like original scripts for a play that were handed to you when you were a kid. And your mind, well, it just keeps reading from those same scripts long into your adult life, casting new people in those old familiar roles. So if your particular childhood script had a theme of maybe not being the favorite or not being the first person someone turned to, your brain did what it had to do. It adapted. While some other kids were learning to expect grand gestures and chase that feeling of intensity, your brain was getting a masterclass in self-reliance. You became a kind of hyper-observer, learning to read all the subtle signals, the pauses, the tiny shifts in tone, because your emotional survival literally depended on it. And this early wiring, it builds something inside of you. It creates this internal safety monitor in your brain. Just imagine it like a thermostat, one that's constantly checking the emotional temperature of every single one of your relationships. In psychology, we call this the attachment behavioral system. And its whole job, its only job, is to ask one question over and over and over. Is my partner accessible? Are they responsive? Are they really here for me? And here is the absolute key. If you grow up with inconsistent support, that internal thermostat of yours is basically set to high alert all the time. Your nervous system is already buzzing from years of working overtime just to keep you safe. So of course it doesn't want the roller coaster of intense highs and lows. It craves the deep, profound calm that only comes from consistency. And this is why that feeling of being chosen, consistently day in and day out, is so incredibly valuable to you. It's not just some nice-to-have preference. No, it's the antidote to a really deep-seated fear of being quietly replaced or, being treated like you're temporary. It's a fundamental need for stability in a world that you learned early on could be really unpredictable. Okay, now this is where we make the pivot. This is the moment we stop looking at this sensitivity as some kind of wound and start reframing it as a highly developed, super attuned form of intelligence. This is where your history becomes your superpower. What you or others might have dismissed as insecurity or overthinking is actually something psychologists call active observation. You're not just guessing what's going on. You are seeing the patterns. You can spot the tiny little cracks in someone's character way before they turn into giant gaping holes, because your brain was trained from day one to do exactly that. This skill really creates two different kinds of people in the world. On one side, you've got the consumers of affection. They need that constant external validation. They're always seeking that next dopamine hit of excitement. But on the other side, you have producers of stability. And that is you. You're self-reliant, you have an internal locus of control, and you are the owner of your actions.
And that, right there, is the silent strength. It's this profound emotional endurance. It means you can weather disappointments, you can survive letdowns, because your sense of self-worth isn't something that's handed to you by someone else. It's an internal quality you have built from the ground up.
But let's be real for a second. Even with this incredible strength, it can still feel like a battle inside, right? Why is there still a part of you that sometimes craves the exact kind of intensity you know isn't actually good for you? Well, it's because your mind isn't just one single voice. It's more like a committee. And on that committee, you've got the inner child, who still, understandably, craves that loud, flashy validation it probably never got. But you also have the wise adult, who knows deep down that real connection is built on the quiet, steady groundwork of consistency and trust. That tension you feel, it's the debate between these two voices. Which brings us to it. The final, and honestly, the most important step I promised you. This is the actionable part. This is how you finally give the wise adult the microphone. It's a technique for what I call a neural reset. Okay, the first and most critical shift here is all in your mindset. See, most of us act like judges in our own minds, constantly passing these harsh verdicts on ourselves based on old, negative stories. To break that cycle, you have to become a craftsperson, someone who can pick up a thought, turn it over in their hands, examine it, and then decide if it's actually useful for building the life you want. So what's the craftsperson's number one tool? It's something we'll call verbal fabrication. All that really means is the conscious, internal conversation where you actively direct and then evaluate your own thoughts, instead of just letting them run wild on autopilot. Here's exactly how to do it. We'll call it the 24-hour test. Step 1, you identify a recurring negative thought, one of those stagnant water stories, like, they haven't texted back, so I'm definitely being replaced. Step 2, you put that thought on the workbench and you ask it a simple, direct question. If I choose to believe this story for the next 24 hours, what behavior is it going to lead to? And finally, step 3, you evaluate the outcome. If the answer is it leads to obsessive phone checking, clinging, or self-sabotage, you have to recognize it as unskillful and consciously decide to drop it. When you start using this test, you begin to reappraise everything. You start to realize that your deep, fundamental need for loyalty and consistency, it isn't a flaw. It's not just a trauma response. It's a refined standard. It's an empowered choice being made by the wise adult in your mind. Because let's just be crystal clear about something. Loyalty is not boring. It is not the absence of passion. In a world that is obsessed with fleeting intensity, consistent, chosen loyalty, that is the highest and clearest resolution of love you can find. So if you take one thing away today, let it be this. You are not defined by those old rejection scripts from your childhood. You are the awareness that observes those scripts. You are the craftsperson at the workbench who holds the power to choose consistency, to choose stability, and to choose genuine connection every single day. And that really just leaves us with one final question for you to take with you. As you look at the thoughts on your own workbench, what's one stagnant water story, one old, unhelpful script that you will choose to rewrite starting today?